Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Carry-On Friends, the Caribbean American experience. And I'm excited about you meeting my guest today, Randy. Randy, welcome to the podcast. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, Kerry-Ann. Very happy to be here today.
Awesome. So why don't you tell the community of friends a little bit about who you are, Caribbean country you represent, and the work you do?
So, a little bit about me Randy Pelaya, born in Richmond Hill, Queens, New York. So, the heart of the Caribbean community, right? Little Guyana. If you're not from the New York area, that's what we call it. A little bit about myself is been around the world, been to 60 countries, six continents, proud first generation American. I've been around the world, worked for a lot of Fortune 100 organizations, and today we're here to talk about our company, West Indies Peppa Sauce, that my wife and I recently launched this year. Getting ready to do some big things.
Wonderful. So, all right, before we get into West Indian pepper sauce, talk to me a little bit about what it was like growing up in Richmond Hill, Little Guyana, and your experience as a first generation Guyanese American. And yeah, tell me about how that was for you.
I love it. This is a question that is near and dear to my heart, right? Because you don't know where you're going unless if you know where you're coming from. So I grew up in Queens, Richmond Hill. Yeah, in Richmond Hill, it used to be a very Italian neighborhood back in the day. My dad immigrated from Guyana to Brooklyn in the late '70s and hopped over to Queens, Richmond Hill, in the early '80s. Growing up in New York City, in Queens, everybody's from everywhere, right? Between Queens and Brooklyn, 170 languages are spoken. All sense, all background, all types of cultures reside there. Uh, I remember as a child, I'm 40 right now. As a child, there would always be, the Labor Day parade. There would always be some type of event celebrating our communities. And our communities was not only Guyanese, it was Trinidadians, Jamaicans, St. Lucia, Grenada, Haiti, Puerto Rico. Like it's representing everyone. So my childhood of New York was very much culture, and it's very nostalgic to this day.
You know, you mentioned that you've traveled all over the world, you've been to most of the continents. Which country or countries you felt like when you showed up and you were representing Guyana, they were just like, oh wow, like they really loved not only your Guyanese heritage, but Caribbean culture on a whole. Which country did you say like really leaned into like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Tell me more.
Yeah, no, that's a solid question there. So we spent my wife and I, Shauna, she's the co-founder of West Indies Pepper Sauce as well. We spent about 5 years living in Asia. So 1 year in South Korea and 4 years in Vietnam. So the region that really connects with me outside of the Caribbean is Southeast Asia. So I think Vietnam is in that bucket. Thailand is in that bucket. Singapore, Malaysia. Those are the big areas of people were very curious. In Singapore, right? Those are also a lot of the regions where people are really curious. Wow, Guyana, where is that from? So there you gotta, as we all know, Kerry-Ann, right? What is the Caribbean? What is the West Indies? You got to go back, and everybody you meet is a big history lesson, right? But they were very, very, very much connected and intrigued about our people. They know a little bit about us, right? They know a little bit about the ingredients, but they don't know the whole pepper pot.
That's awesome. So throughout your trip in Southeast Asia, right? Did you find similarities to your, Guyanese Caribbean culture? And did was any of that like a catalyst or a starting point for conversation? It's just, we for many people who may not be fortunate to travel in those areas, sometimes it's not easy to see commonalities. So did you
Mhm.
see any of that while you were in Asia?
Yeah. So we moved out there to teach English, right? So Shauna was mom. She's Vietnamese American. She was adopted. That was kind of, and we're both proud first generation Americans. That's what, when we tell our family, hey, we're leaving the States to go live overseas to teach English, people are like, what? Oh my gosh, why? And then as we jumped into it, to answer your question, was on the weekends we would go to the markets, right? Jump on our motorbikes, go to the market, and we went over to Vietnam because to learn about the culture. My wife's mother was adopted as a refugee, so I told her like we it's important for us to learn about the culture and learn about the language. So we started speaking Vietnamese. So we're basic conversational Vietnamese as we would go down the market, Kerry-Ann, and I would go and get my spinach, right? Or I get my potatoes, or I get my fish, right? Or get my or chicken, and get all of the herbs and coconut and all that. So I started to realize all of the ingredients that they have out there is what we have in the Caribbean and the West Indies, right? Everything from soursop, mango, guinea, I mean, a star fruit, guava. It's just down to the bones or so. But one of the things that really just set me off was, we use a lot of coconut, right, in our curries and a part of our cultures across the region. The way they just actually grate the coconut reminded me culturally of my grandma, right? And it's not only my grandma, it's all of our grandmas in the Caribbean and the West Indies, right? So it's very nostalgic, that sense of community around food. And as you go to different regions in Thailand, in Singapore, Malaysia, reggae's big, right? People know reggae, they know dancehall. My nickname growing up was Reggae Randy. It still is to this day, right? So I would always be intrigued about people and their music selection and how they learn about reggae and what was that influence beyond, right? So hopefully that answers that question. I'm happy to dive in deeper.
Yes, it answered my question, and I want to know Reggae Randy need to pull a tune right now. What's the tune Reggae Randy going pull?
Now you're putting me on the spot. So listen, I love Chronics. I love Barris. I love dancehall. I love coffee from the West Indies. So I'm not a singer and all that. So, but I could definitely do the vibe and all that. So
Yeah, man, I could run with any one of those. So yes, yes, sounds great. So you've traveled the world and now you've decided to launch a business. Tell me what was the impetus for that? What was the reason
mhm.
that you've decided, you know what, we are going to start, Shauna, we're going to start this business?
Yeah,
And she's like, yes, babe, we're going to do it.
yeah,
So talk to me a little bit about that.
yeah. This is Kerry-Ann. This has been, truthfully speaking, this has been a long time in the making, right? So my background is e-commerce, logistics. I used to work for DHL Express, UPS. I used to bring brands to market and expand across the domestic and global market. And Shauna's very much background as a marketing director, leading that brand image and direction of that. So I used to make pepper sauce, for my friends and family in a regular jar and give it out to my family and friends. And when they start tasting that, they're like, wow, this is fantastic. Can I get some more? I used to grow it out of my garden, and I still do. But Carrie Ann, it's just such a small yield of pepper sauce that you can make, right? Um, so, you know, we started last year, last summer is when Shauna and I decided to create West Indies pepper sauce. Got a lot of inspiration from our family, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. They're out of Northwest Arkansas. They're the ones who really helped push this to start this company. Um, we launched in February of this year, and truth be told, is I've been laid off from my job for about 4.5 months. Sean has been laid off for her job for the last month and a half. And Carrie-Ann, we work we have worked at Fortune 100 organizations, working with decision makers, working with all types of brands. And you know, I love pepper sauce. I love food. We love to cook. We cook a very good Vietnamese Guyanese combination type of food. In the space of pepper sauce, it's limited, right? You've got a few options. Big up to Grace, right? Not can't disrespect. Bertie's, from Trinidad, can't disrespect. Walkers from Jamaica, St. Anne's. all day, every day, right? But coming from the US market, you know, this is where it really hits the soul, right? Because we've been around 60 countries, six continents. We pushed ourselves to go do that. We came from no money. My dad was a construction worker. Shauna's mom, when she came into the States from Vietnam, as she grew up, she was, working in factories. We look at the products on the shelves, all the premium products out there, they have all different types of cultures. So when you get into the hot sauce section, Kerry-Ann, you just see a lot of companies, they take a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I don't want to use the word teething, but they're taking a lot of our culture. So, first and foremost, West Indies Pepper Sauce. We are a premium brand in the hot sauce market. In the industry, people don't look like us. They don't have our brand story. They don't have our jars. And the whole basis of West Indies Pepper Sauce is to educate consumers of all walks in life about the Caribbean and the West Indies, about all of our people and the contributions that we continue to do. So we're 6 months old out of Orlando. We're doing farmers markets. We're getting ready to rock and roll. Things happen for a reason, Carrie. We got a 4 and 6 year old. They're involved into this. We get love, vibes from people, from all of our people across the board. And, here we are.
Randy, you said something, and, being in the entrepreneurship space, you'd see like how much pepper sauce you need, right? But if we go into the supermarket and you walk the shelf, you see how many pepper sauce in there that doesn't necessarily represent Caribbean culture. So the more options, the better.
Mhm.
So I want to focus on the pepper sauce a little bit. Now, you said that you started with the stuff from your garden and you would, bottle it and the yield.
Mhm.
So, talk to me about scaling the production,
Yeah.
right? In order to one, satisfy the different farmers markets,
Mhm.
and two, you know, if you're a big cook, cooking a small pot of rice and peas is very different from cooking a big pot. So when you're dealing with bulk and volume, there's a quality concern that most people have. So talk to me, how are you managing all these different elements and changes that will inevitably happen as you expand and grow?
Yeah. No, I like that question. So yeah, started, for the last 20 plus years making it from our garden, right? Just go to the store, get some different types of pepper and just make our pepper sauce. As we started for West Indies Pepper Sauce, our intention was never to just be small, not only to be in the West Indian Caribbean market, and that's that, right? We're selling it to some folks. We wanted to bring it to scale, to market. So the first things first was family from Guyana, right? So in Guyana, there's two types of pepper. Weir pepper, which is a unique pepper from Guyana, and then in Guyana we call it balafaya pepper, aka Scotch bonnet. Bigging up back to Jamaica, right? Scotch bonnets from Jamaica, right? So as we started this journey, we wanted to see who are the players out here, right? Where are people sourcing the products? So, and our goal is to be in specialties retailers, the Sprouts, the Whole Foods, the Wegmans, the premium specialty markets. We have five ingredients: Scotch bonnet, cucumbers, turmeric, salt, and vinegar. So our largest supplier is our pepper supplier. We source our Scotch bonnets from Costa Rica. They're non-GMO, and then we source our cucumbers locally. So that's not going to be a challenge, right? The biggest challenge is getting those Scotch bonnet peppers, right, and having that brand consistency. Whether it's jar number, because we have it in a jar, right? Whether it's jar number 1 to jar number 10,000, it all looks the same. We're vegan, non-GMO, and gluten free. And what a lot of people tend to say is when they taste it, they say, you know what? I haven't had pepper sauce like that in a long time. It reminds me back to my childhood, or it reminds me back from when my granny used to make that or so.
Now, when we think of local? Are you shipping? Like, what does shelf life look like? Because again, I know you've done logistics, but like when it comes to food, the logistics thing set up very differently.
Mhm.
So how are you managing like, maintaining the shelf life when you have to ship it and all of these things? Talk to me a little bit about that and maybe some of the challenges, unforeseen challenges that you've run into so far.
Yeah, so the shelf life is 1 year, right? So from a production perspective, as soon as our products are made, we have that 1 year shelf life. We tell people to open up the container and then put it in the refrigerator. Our average customer finishes their bottle of pepper sauce in 32 days. Um, with regards to like unseen challenges, I think where we are right now as a brand, as we're getting ready to scale, is making sure that we have the right resources, right? So you just can't get into a Walmart or a Whole Foods or a Wegmans just like that. You have to kind of go through a food broker. Once you go through those food broker, you have to pay X amount of dollars in order to have an opportunity there, and that's when they'll start pitching these brands. Um, so I think a challenge would be, making sure that we have enough capital to pay all of those food brokers. This is an expensive game. We don't come from it. We jumped into it. We are here and we're about to make things happen. But I think that's going to be a challenge as we, from a food broker perspective, making sure that we have that capital to pay those slot-in fees, and the slot-in fees are how you get into these groceries, and then making sure that you're not going to get paid then and there. You might have 30, 60, 90-day net terms, so you got to I think the challenge would be managing finances as we scale. Our eye is to be across the U.S. And once we're finished across the U.S., we already got a lot of love and support from Canada and the UK, and the there's a lot of interest out there. So it's about understanding how it all works together. And we're working with with a lot of brands who are going through this journey outside of the pepper sauce space. So we have our resources.
Yes. That was a question that I was going to ask because on this entrepreneurial journey, it's really important to sometimes connect with other brands within your similar space because you can learn from each other's challenges.
Mhm.
So I want to go back. I want to get back to the layoffs a little bit because there's a lot there, and I've gone through layoffs myself. But was the layoff the impetus for the scale, or were you already in process and the layoffs just accelerated the scale or scaling it to where you are now
Yeah,
or what you're trying to do now?
yeah. It Things happen in life for a reason, right? And if you have your eyes closed and you don't see what's happening in front of you, you miss that opportunity. So as we were building this out in the background, working off full time jobs and raising two kids under the age of 7, um, started applying for jobs, and you know to be real, we would go after our referrals, our community, our networks, and you know we wouldn't get I wouldn't get called back. I wouldn't even have an opportunity with all of my experience as well as Shauna's experience to have that opportunity to interview or so. And so I would allocate X amount of, maybe like 2 hours a day working on whips, and another, 2 hours working on, applying for roles, and then another, 2 hours planning. Um, and, after a certain time, it's been 4 months for me. I said, we've had so much success, Kerry-Ann, from a local farmers market and shipping nationwide. People resonating with our brand and our brand identity and our mission. I decided to take this full time, jump in head first. Right now, we're dotting our I's, crossing our T's, making sure that we have everything in place to start scaling. And we want to scale not everywhere. We want to be very intentional, because first things first is we're $15 a jar for our pepper sauce. We're in the premium space of hot sauce, and we're not just selling pepper sauce. We're selling our culture. Not only from Guyana, Trinidad, Jamaica, St. Lucia, or Puerto Rico, Dominican. We represent in all of our regions.
What about your full-time roles? For your wife, Shauna, it's
Mhm.
clear, but what about your full-time role and your experience professionally? What are the skills there that you're leveraging for Whips right now to help you navigate this new venture?
Yeah. So in Vietnam, while we lived in Vietnam, we taught English. And we also had a sourcing business. We were manufacturing dresses. So we have no background into that, right? And it goes to the life saying, right? In order to be those who live or learn the most, you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. That's how you live and learn, right? So we know a little bit about production and sourcing and putting things together, making sure our price points are where they're at, strategic relationships, that strategic perspective, that really just having a roadmap of where we want to be, having a strong sense of brand identity, right? So for West Indies Pepper Sauce, with my experience with Shauna and myself, we want to focus on three things. We want to create a great product. We want to have a great user experience, and then we also want to have a message that is compelling. So with my experience working with top brands, working with decision makers, working with some of the household brands that we all use day in day out, I understand some of their challenges. Right? We understand, what are their challenges, and those are things that we're also just utilizing to our advantage as we grow as we grow West Indies pepper sauce.
I want to, again, not to harp on the layoff, but I think
Mhm.
there's some lessons there that you can help convey to the audience. So, you know, someone's listening, they have a full-time job. What is one or two lessons that you've learned from this transition of looking for a job, being laid off, and you're like, you need to make a decision? What's a lesson or two that you feel like you can share with the audience about navigating the space or preparing, because you never know. Anyone of we might be in this position at any
Mhm.
time. So, any lessons that you've learned that you want to share?
Yeah, this is something that I kind of asked myself along the way, and it's great to self-reflect. The two lessons that I tend to take away, or I would offer, would be: it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, what you believe in. Be authentic. You gotta be authentic. People could smell it if you're not. So we're doing this as our authentic selves. And the second thing would be celebrate the small wins day in and day out, right? Um, you have to look and celebrate those wins, right? And if you fail, that's an opportunity to learn. And if you're not learning from your failure, you're not going anywhere, right? So you have to be genuine and be authentic and celebrate those small wins. With regards to like the layoffs, man, Kerry-Ann, it's so tough for so many people out there, and my heart goes out for everybody, right? Um, and I don't pity ourselves with regards to what's happening right now. We are taking something as a negative, turn it into a positive, and we are going to move forward. Kerry-Ann, I refuse to give up, because in our short span of doing this, I want to go back to the pepper sauce. Brands don't look like us. They don't have our story. They don't have our product. And we are all about representation, about jumping into this space.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate you coming and talking about the layoffs because again, you know, entrepreneurship is a viable option, but we also have to make sure we're messaging it that it's the reality of that option. It's not easy, right? It requires, a lot of things. You have a spouse that you're working together, you can support each other. That looks very different for other people.
Mhm.
So I really appreciate that you are sharing and you're vulnerable about that and your experience. So, um, when it comes to the pepper sauce, what's the scale? Mega asked the very important question that Caribbean people want to
Sure.
know. What's the scale of pepper? Like, is it or hi, it hot? Like, do you have different jars that cover different levels of heat, or is it like one spice for everybody?
Yeah, I could if it's okay, I could just get I have two jars on the cabinet here. I can just bring it over here and I'll show it to you. 1 second.
Yep.
So thank you. So we do have two jars, right? So we have our, let's see if you can see this. We have our, it's a 6 ounce jar, West Indies pepper sauce. This is 5 ingredients: Scotch bonnet peppers, cucumbers, turmeric, salt, and vinegar. We're 6 ounce. So the the red pepper sauce, which we're going to be giving it a name shortly, um, it has a citrus undertone. So on a scale from 0 to 10, when we use a little spoon to give out samples, I'd say it's about a 6 out of 10 based on a little drop. Our serving size is a teaspoon. So for me, I like a lot of pepper sauce, right? Our pepper sauce is not going to burn. It's not going to burn your butt. That's not what we're going after. So it's flavorful. It's flavorful. It it is going to help enhance your food, but there's a lot of culture in here, right? Not only Guyana culture, but from the whole West Indies and the Caribbean, right? So the red has a bit of a citrus undertone. The yellow, same ingredients. It has a bit of a tangy undertone. And from a spice level, it's still that 6 out of 10 perspective, right? A little bit gives you that six. And how it normally goes is once you have a teaspoon, or you have a bit of a taste on it whenever we do it at the farmers markets, it kind of goes up a little bit and it's just hanging there and then it's going down and it's at the back of your tongue. And we are our saying is based on customer feedback is we're addictive without the additives, right? So we're vegan, we're non-GMO and gluten free. This is 5 clean ingredients here. So hopefully that kind of answers that question. If you want it hotter, all you do is instead of 1 teaspoon, you just do 2 teaspoon. And if you do more than 2 teaspoon, man, wow, that's gonna be some trouble. But that's kind of like from the perspective. This is flavor for your food.
Wonderful. So, before we wrap up, what do you want people to know about you, West Indian pepper sauce? Where is it available? All of that good stuff.
Yeah. So first and foremost, our website is shopwips.com. So shopwips.com. We're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. Our handle is at shopwips, or you could just search West Indies Pepper Sauce. So we're on those platforms. And we're also on Amazon. Um, so if you are in the Central Florida market, in the Orlando market, we do a lot of farmers markets right now. We did this one big event in Miami, Soca Food, Wine, and Fet, with Vanessa James, who is very much in our community, who is celebrating so many of us and really talking about the Caribbean diaspora. So we're doing a lot of events right now, and we're online, selling nationwide. But the next tier is we're going to be jumping into. We're working on jumping into to specialty retailers across the U.S.
Wonderful. Well, Randy, congrats to you and Shauna for starting this initiative. Wishing you both success. We need more Caribbean brands and a variety of Caribbean brands in our local stores. And like you said, it's representing our culture. Every brand that's out there has a different story, and each story just is it's just additive to what our culture represents, right? All the different ways. So thank you so much for being on the podcast. And any last words before we sign off?
Thank you for the kind words. My last words would be, Kerry-Ann, I've learned about your background, about who you are, being a Brooklyn native, representing, 100% Jamaican. I love what you do for our community. At West Indies Pepper Sauce, it's not about me or, all the West Indian or Caribbean people or so. It's about celebrating every day people from the Caribbean and West Indies making an impact day in and day out. So thank you for what you do, because you give us all a platform. And at the end of the day, representation, it will always be important. So you'll big up yourself.
Thank you, Randy. Let me tell you, Reggae Randy, this is real selector talk. I'm just playing. The way you flow, me say, yeah, man, I see it, I see it. Thank you so much for, coming on the podcast, telling your story. I hope someone is encouraged. I hope someone recognizes if they're in a layoff that there is opportunities that they could try, like there's it's not the end, and that's what I got. There's always something to try, something to do, and in the process of doing and trying that, we're bringing our culture and our stories. That's what I got, from what you're saying. Wherever you go, whatever you're doing, your culture all up in there, you can't take it away. So, and that is what we're about here on Carry On Friends. So thank you for coming on, sharing your story, letting everybody know a little bit more about who you are. And as I love to say at the end of every episode, walk good.
I respect love.